Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are the two most sacked quarterbacks of any quarterback in the league over the past 2 seasons.
Never said this before because I believe in Mike Tomlin so much, but still has got last place written all over them, Shay.
I hope I don't come off as a Justin Fields hater or a Russell Wilson hater because I've been so locked into these two players' careers over the past couple of years, and now they're in one of the most unique quarterback battles I think I've ever seen, and to be honest, I don't really think there's a surefire winner so far, except for fans that aren't Pittsburgh Steelers fans. So I wanted to update you guys on everything happening with this QB battle. Before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all of that out of the way, work! Ladies and gentlemen, the wait is finally over. Football season is back, and to celebrate the return of football, we're getting 2 free squares from PrizePicks, meaning you only need to pick one player's stats correctly in order to 3x your money, or if you want to get crazy and pick 2 players' stats correctly, you could 5x your money. Now, if you aren't signed up for PrizePicks and you're good at projecting player stats in sports, then I highly recommend you download the app. I even have a promo code for you to get $50 when you make an entry of $5 or more, and that promo code is Mikerophone. The first free square is in college football. Jalen Milroe only needs 1 passing yard when Alabama opens their season for his square to cash. Now, you can pair Jalen up with any player in college football or the NFL, but I personally think I'm going to pair him with Baker Mayfield's pass yardage versus Washington for a chance to 3x my money. Once that game is over, we have another free square from PrizePicks, and Caleb Williams just needs 1 passing yard in his debut for his square to cash. Now, I'll give you my picks for week 1 on my Instagram at @TheFlightMike, where I post my free picks daily, and if you haven't signed up for PrizePicks, I highly recommend it. It's a great way to get some action in these games, and between us, they really aren't good at making lines in the beginning of the season. Use my promo code Mikerophone and get $50 when you make an entry of $5 or more, and thank you PrizePicks for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The Pittsburgh Steelers are in a major pickle, and it's starting to look like there won't be a positive outcome either way. After the Kenny Pickett experiment blew up in flames, the Pittsburgh front office went out and got 2 starting caliber quarterbacks in hopes that one of them could turn things around in Steeltown. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields have been in a heated battle for months over who should be under center once week 1 rolls around, but the battle hasn't been as productive as the Steelers hoped it would be. See, the expectations for the Pittsburgh Steelers are significantly higher than in previous years, but the hype is starting to turn into pure confusion. Going into training camp, it was pretty much set in everyone's minds that Russell Wilson would start, would have a super small leash, and would probably be benched for Justin Fields at some point during the season. But the Steelers see it completely differently. They want one guy who can help them compete now. Mike Tomlin doesn't have the patience to be waiting around and not sure of who the best quarterback on his team is in the middle of a playoff push. He wants to know now. The problem is, neither quarterback has given Tomlin a single reason to choose them. For example, after Pittsburgh's second preseason game against the Buffalo Bills, Tomlin was basically asked what his thoughts were on the 2 quarterbacks and if he could assess their performances. And he responded by saying that what he saw from the 2 on the field was an incomplete study. He'd go on to say that it's somewhat of an incomplete study because you just don't get to see them operate or establish rhythm and personality when you're not winning possession downs. You'd think that after a month of training camp and preseason games that you'd have at least an idea of who the better guy is, but no, this feels like a legitimately impossible task, especially for a guy like Tomlin who's as tight-knit as it gets, and I'm sure he's absolutely hating this uncertainty.
I think I got this red flags from a mile away, partly because I think Russell sucks, and second because I think Fields, pretty clear he's probably a lot like the guy we've seen in Chicago.
I mean, this is crazy. Both of these quarterbacks started over 13 games last season, and to be honest, both of their statistics weren't that bad either. It shouldn't be this hard to be impressed by one or the other. I get that Russell Wilson is 35 years old, and I know he played horribly in year 1 with the Denver Broncos, but he's still one of the best quarterbacks of his generation. There's absolutely no excuse for Russ not being able to separate himself from undrafted free agents on the other side of the field. He needs to get it together, or his career as a starting quarterback very well could be over. And I don't think anyone says it better than Stephen A. Smith here.
Russell Wilson, you're beginning to piss me off. Ain't fight for no start job with Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields you're starting for a job with. and he's sitting there with some smile on his face. You fight for your career. Act like it, Russell Wilson.
Just a few years ago, this guy was a perennial MVP candidate. We were hearing how he was chasing his legacy and wanted to win MVPs. And now he's so bad that he not only can't secure a starting job, but his old team is also going to pay him $85 million over the next 2 seasons to not play for them. What happened? Before he left Seattle, Russ was a surefire Hall of Famer, but now we're not quite sure. If he doesn't end up bouncing back with Pittsburgh and his career ends by being Justin Fields' backup, then his legacy genuinely might take a massive hit. And with the way he's been playing on the football field, it doesn't seem like he cares a whole lot. Russ played 6 drives in his 2 preseason games and only led Pittsburgh to some points once. On this touchdown run by Cordarrelle Patterson and Russ's only drive against Detroit, the offense genuinely looks terrible with Russ on the field. But at the same time, I don't think it's 100% the quarterback's fault. I mean, the fact that his offensive line can't block doesn't help either. But an NFL veteran quarterback should be able to adjust to that, especially against third stringers. It's unfortunate, to be honest, because look at what Russell Wilson could do with a clean pocket. But the fact of the matter is, the offensive line is young and inconsistent and won't give whoever ends up starting this kind of protection every time they drop back. It's going to get even worse when they're playing everyone's starters. And Russ is expected to be the guy who can handle that between the 2 QBs, but he just hasn't been able to deal with the pressure. Fortunately for Russ, neither has Justin Fields. Pressure has been getting to Justin Fields way more than it should, considering how elusive he was in Chicago. But other than that, Fields hasn't really looked that bad in his preseason games. The pocket presence is definitely a glaring issue with Justin Fields, but just like Russ, he's looked solid with a clean pocket. The only problem is he holds the ball forever, resulting in some very unnecessary sacks, and he's way too dependent on tucking the ball away and running in instances where he has wide receivers that are wide open. Now, usually sacks wouldn't be a problem for somebody as athletic as Justin Fields, but all he's shown us this preseason is he's struggling to read the field properly, which has been something that has been haunting Justin Fields for the entirety of his career. Let me put it to you this way. Justin Fields has held the ball on average for 3.39 seconds every time he drops back. Caleb Williams, the man who ran Fields out of Chicago, holds the ball on average for 3.36 seconds. Now, I know what you might be thinking.
Mike, that's not that big of a deal. It's only 0.03 seconds.
I know it doesn't seem like that big of a deal when you compare Fields to the #1 overall pick, right? Wrong. The two might hold the ball for the same amount of time, but Williams only has a sack rate of 4.8%, while Fields has a sack rate of 11.5%. And that 4.8% for Caleb includes 1 sack. Percentage is only that high because of his limited playing time, so that number would be even lower with a higher snap count. Holding the ball and reading the field isn't a bad thing if you can get the ball out of your hands, but Fields has struggled with that heavily. He's even struggled with reading the field in the run game, which is usually his specialty. I mean, just look at this read option for an example. If he hands this ball off, it's a touchdown, but instead it's a negative gain because he decided to keep the ball himself, and it's now a turnover on downs because he made the wrong read. He's in his own head. This has been an issue that not only Fields has dealt with for years, but Russell Wilson as well. And with the way the Steelers' offensive line is looking, things aren't going to change this year. And Mark Schlereth says it perfectly here.
You cannot score in the National Football League when your quarterback is laying on his back.
Yeah, you saw that right. The Steelers went out and got the 2 most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL last season to play behind the youngest offensive lines in football. Doesn't seem that smart, but hey, I'm not a general manager. I'm just some guy that yells about sports in his apartment or in poorly lit rooms in Madrid. And NFL general managers clearly know what they're doing way more than I do, except you, Jerry Jones. I don't know what the you're doing. I mean, he did just extend CeeDee Lamb. We have a separate video on that. We'll leave it in the end screen if you want to get my thoughts on that as a Cowboy fan. What I'm trying to say is I could completely be wrong about this, but with the way things are looking right now, Myles Garrett is going to sack the quarterback 5 times a game against Pittsburgh this year. That is unless Russell Wilson can find his inner Seahawk, or Justin Fields can play like he did in camp. Before preseason games even started for Pittsburgh, Fields had a huge opportunity to shine during the team's training camp, and shine is exactly what he did. Fields would finish camp with 35 total touchdowns and only 2 interceptions, making the initial gap between him and Russell Wilson even smaller. His offensive line was even fighting for him after a late hit in one of his first ever practices as a Steeler. It's clear that he made an immediate impact not only on the field, but in the locker room as well. He's well liked in the Pittsburgh Steelers front office, and with how much raw potential he has, I can definitely understand why. Regardless of how average he was in the preseason, anyone who can make this play deserves a shot at the starting job. The problem is that he's also doing stuff like this, preventing those plays from happening from the start. He's fumbled way more snaps than he should have in his preseason start, and it honestly makes no sense to me how Justin Fields can play so well during camp, but immediately fold under pressure once he faces a team that isn't wearing the same jersey as him. Again, I'll reiterate the fact that his offensive line hasn't given him any help, but like I said about Russ, if you're a starting quarterback in the NFL, the highest level of competition there is, there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to adjust to the pressure. It's not even like he's trying and it's not working. There are no adjustments. Fields has never been good with reading defenses and picking up pass rush, but the fact of the matter is, the guy has next level athleticism and would be able to escape the majority of the pressure he faces if he just had the instincts to do so. If Fields, or especially Russ, can find the best version of themselves, this Pittsburgh Steelers team could be absolutely terrifying. Whoever starts is going to be surrounded by weapons like George Pickens, Najee Harris, and maybe even Brandon Ayuk if Pittsburgh's cards are played right. And on top of that, they have one of the best defenses in football at every level, with guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick and Joey Porter Jr. in the secondary, the newly signed Patrick Queen in the box, former Defensive Player of the Year TJ Watt rushing the passer. Literally the only hole this team has is at the quarterback position. The AFC North is already the scariest division in all of football, and that one hole is making Pittsburgh the weak link. Some good quarterback play is all this team needs to compete for not only the AFC North, but for a Super Bowl as well. Fields has all the physical tools and raw potential in the world. Russell Wilson has proven that he can lead a team to a Super Bowl and has all pro honors to his name. These versions of these guys need to come out. They just haven't yet. Will they at all this season, or will the Steelers waste some more years of TJ Watt's career and get bounced in the wild card round because their two shiny quarterbacks couldn't get the job done? Only time will tell, but right now it's leaning towards the latter. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Aside from that, the Pittsburgh Steelers brought back Juju Smith-Schuster, and they got him for practically free. We made a completely separate video on that, and I'll leave it in the end screen, and I'll catch you guys there. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.